Okay, good evening. It is 6 o'clock and I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for this virtual public meeting for the I-69 Ohio River Crossing. I'm Mindy Peterson. I'm spokesperson for the project. I want to say that we're awfully glad to have you joining us this evening. We are anticipating a good crowd. We already have a good crowd here, so we appreciate you taking the time out of your evening. That's not always easy to make that time after a busy day. So thank you very much. And thanks for your interest in this project. I wish we could be together in person. We've had several of these public meetings along the way, and it's always really enjoyable to talk to people who are interested in this project and watching the progress. So we're missing that too. We hope that this will be a helpful update for you tonight. There are just a few housekeeping items to take care of before we begin our presentation tonight. We've talked about a couple of those items as we were getting ready for the meeting, but I want to go ahead and walk through those. First of all, cameras and mics, they're only on for just a handful of the project team members. You'll see some of the project team members over there to the right with the cameras on. All of us are keeping our mics muted as well, because sometimes you have life and house and home and everything else going on, and that can be a distraction. So we'll all be on mute unless we're talking to you this evening. Also want to let you know that this is a very large group. For that reason, all of the mics are off to prevent those distractions. However, you are able to interact with the project team. That's very important to us, and we want to let you know that you are able to share your questions, submit your comments. All you're going to do is use that Q&A button. It's at the bottom of your screen in the bar there. You'll see that Q&A section. Use that, click on it, and type in any question or comment that you may have. And I will tell you now that you can do that at any time during this presentation. Those will just queue up for us to get through later. So no problem at all. Just use that Q&A function. It's the best way to reach out to us with any questions or comments. I also want to let you know that all of those questions and comments that are being submitted tonight are part of the comment period. That comment period just launched today, and we'll be talking more about it later in this presentation. But what you really need to know, the important information here is you're covered. If you are taking part in this meeting, if you submit a question or a comment, and then you see us talking about the comment period on our social media channels or anywhere else, and you're like, well, I submitted a comment or a question during the meeting, but I'm not so sure if that counts. Yes, it counts. You don't need to do anything else. Anything that is submitted today will become part of the official record. What that means when we say that it's included in the official record is it's going to be included in that final environmental impact statement. And so you don't need to take any additional action. If you called into the meeting, because we did have an option, there are some people who may not be joining us online, but they have called into the meeting and they're just listening and following along. If that is the case, we'll ask you to use the traditional comment channels. That's mail, email, or just to call the project office and share your comments. Again, we'll walk through all of this at the end. I do also want to let you know at the beginning of this presentation, the intent is to answer any questions outside of this meeting, because we do have so many people joining us this evening. It's great to see, but it's really not feasible to work through all of those questions. We want to take the time that you deserve to give you the answer that you need. So we'll have time at the end of this presentation for any short questions, any quick questions of clarification. If Dan says something later on and you're not sure if you heard it correctly, or if you want to just say, hey, is this what I heard, or is this right? Something along those lines. We'll try to bang through those answers pretty quickly at the end of the presentation. But any of those questions that deserve a little bit more time, that are going to be a little more substantive of nature, we're going to take those offline. When you submit your question or your comment, we have your contact information. It's going to be the email that you use to sign up for this project meeting. And so there's no need to send any contact information. We'll have that, and a member of the project team will be reaching out to you. And with that, we're going to start the presentation tonight. We will start with some quick introductions. And again, I'm Mindy Peterson. I'm spokesperson for the project and work with public involvement. And you'll see his camera just went on there. I'm joined by Dan Prevost. He is environmental lead for the project. If you've been to one of our meetings, or if you came to one of the hearings, you've seen Dan, you maybe talked to Dan, you've certainly heard from Dan. So he's a familiar face and voice for this project. He's going to be walking through a lot of information for us tonight. Also with us is NDOT Project Manager, Danny Corbin. He's joining us tonight. Also with us is KYTC Project Manager, Gary Valentine. NDOT's Jim Podorowski is with us this evening. Steve Nycase is with Parsons. He is the project manager, and Aaron Pipkin leads public involvement for the project team. We also have several people who are with NDOT, with KYTC, with Federal Highway. They are joining us tonight. We're awfully glad to have them with us. We want to thank them. Most importantly, we want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for joining us this evening. At a glance, this is what we're going to be talking about this evening. We do have a single preferred alternative, as many of you likely know now. It was identified earlier this year. We want to talk about that single preferred alternative. We want to talk about ORX sections 1 and 2. Now, that may be kind of some language that you're not used to hearing, but you're going to be hearing more about, because that's how this project is going to be constructed in 2 sections. And so Dan's going to talk more about that. Dan's also going to provide an overview of several interchange refinements. Those are really some of the main changes that have happened since we talked last, and he's going to go through those one by one. He's going to have some nice renderings. There's a great fly-through video of Kentucky 351 that he's going to show us. So all of that is coming up. We'll also talk about next steps so that you know where we are headed as a project team. And we'll talk more about that comment period that I've already mentioned. It's going to run through April 16th. And let's start with an overview of this important project. I-69 ORX is all about completing that interstate connection. That's the connection between Evansville and Henderson, but it's also a key missing connection when you pull out and you look at that big picture, and eventually what we're talking about is a key connector on a new national corridor. I-69 eventually is going to be just like this map, and it's going to stretch from Mexico to Canada, and it's going to be a new north-south interstate connection. And when you talk about a brand new connection, an interstate that really crosses the country that has not been there before, that connectivity is pretty exciting and is going to open the door to new opportunities. I do want to say that the states that I-69 will run through, they're in various stages of progress, but it is exciting to look at the big picture and know that that new connectivity is planned and what's on the horizon. But let's zoom in and take a look at Kentucky and Indiana, because both states have made the investment, they've spent the time, they've spent the money to improve the I-69 corridor. And I think all of us see that because we're so close to it, and we see all of the work that's being done. In Kentucky, more than 100 miles of parkway now have been upgraded to interstate standards. And that's pretty darn exciting to see. We have 126 miles of I-69 in place in Kentucky that stretches from Mayfield all the way here to Henderson. And in Indiana, across the river, you've heard about all of the years of work and progress on I-69. And that finish line, it's in sight now. We're hearing about it. We're talking about it. Indiana has completed 116 miles of I-69 from Evansville to Martinsville. That 6th and final piece, that final connection of I-69 is now under construction. That's the last 26 miles that will take you from Martinsville to Indy. And when that's complete at the end of 2024, that's when there's a lot of excitement, because that I-69 route is going to be complete from Evansville to Indy. And we know that that's something that a lot of people have been waiting a long time to see happen. That brings us to this important piece, that missing connection with the I-69 Ohio River crossing. You know, we probably talk about purpose and need for this project every time that we get together and talk, and because frankly, it's important. It's about completing that I-69 connection between Indiana and Kentucky, because both states have made so much progress. But it's also about developing that long-term solution to cross-river mobility. This is something that we've talked about in a very candid way. Right now, you have the twin bridges, and one bridge has been here for nearly 90 years and one for over 55 years. And it costs a lot of money to maintain those older bridges, and there has to be a long-term answer on that front, especially when you're talking about interstate traffic moving from both directions. It's headed south, it's headed north, it's on I-69, and you don't want to be that stopping point there. That you need that interstate connection to carry that traffic over the Ohio River. And when you provide that cross-river connection, you're going to reduce congestion and you're going to reduce delay. And that means that you're crossing the river faster and that it's a safer trip. And that's really what this is about: safety, mobility, all of those things that are so important to us in our everyday lives. So what has been happening? It has been a while since we talked. We last met with the public in January of 2019. So certainly a lot has happened since then, and especially in 2020, in a year that none of us expected. But we met in January of 2019 to share the draft environmental impact statement. And that is when we held those public hearings. We had one in Evansville and one in Henderson, and we had great turnout on both sides of the river. Well, since then, you may have wondered, what the heck is going on with the I-69 Ohio River crossing? Where has everybody gone? Well, we didn't go away. The project team has been hard at work since then. All of the comments that we received, and there were a lot of comments, all of those have been considered. And there's been a lot of additional analysis from the project team. They've done value engineering, and that's when you really are taking out and sharpening the pencils. You're looking at cost and you're determining, how are you going to get this done? How are you going to get this bridge built? Now, to that end, you have to identify a single preferred alternative. And we still had two on the table the last time that we talked. And the states have to identify a financial path forward. And that's something that we have always talked about, again, in a very candid way, because this bridge has to be financially feasible in order to be built. And the states are working on that financial path forward. All of these are things that Dan will be talking about more this evening. But before I hand things off, I want to take a quick look at where we were and then where we are. So as mentioned, the last time we got together, it was January of 2019. We had published the DEIS. That was in December of 2018. In that DEIS, you may remember this, the project team talked about two preferred alternatives. We had Central Alternative 1A and Central Alternative 1B. There was one difference between the two. That was the tolling scenario. So with Central Alternative 1A, both the new I-69 bridge and the remaining US 41 bridge would be tolled. With Central Alternative 1B, only the I-69 bridge would be tolled. So where are we now? We have identified a single preferred alternative. It's Central Alternative 1B modified. So what does that mean for you? Well, we're going to build a 4-lane I-69 bridge and retain one of the US 41 bridges for local traffic. That bridge, the US 41 bridge, will not be tolled. Only the I-69 bridge will be tolled. The alignment has not changed at all since the DEIS. We're still talking about the central alignment that was so popular with so many people. That central alignment is about 1.5 miles east of the US 41 bridges. You know, when we have, though, thrown on the word modified, we didn't have that around before. This is a modified alternative because of the changes that we touched on and the improvements to those interchanges. And that is where I'm going to hand things off to Dan now to talk more about that single preferred alternative and those interchange refinements. Dan?
All right. Thanks, Mindy. So as Mindy said, I'm going to provide some more detail about the single preferred alternative and also about why it was selected and the state's plans for implementation of the project. So following publication of the draft EIS, the states had a 45-day comment period, including having 2 public hearings. Hopefully many of you were able to attend those. And all that whole comment period was about gathering input and gathering feedback on those 2 preferred alternatives. In total, we received over 500 comments on the project. Now, those comments covered everything from the alignment to tolling to environmental issues. But in terms of comments addressing those 2 preferred alternatives, first of all, most people agreed that with the selection of the Central Alternative 1 corridor over those west corridors that followed the existing US 41 roadway. Most people also supported keeping that US 41 crossing toll-free. We also heard from a lot of folks who supported either keeping both US 41 bridges operational and toll-free, or supported putting limitations on trucks on US 41, or suggested some kind of discount program or a toll-free option for local drivers. So all of these comments that we received factored into the decision-making that's been going on over the last 2 years. But I did want to make sure that folks understood that This is just a sampling of some of the comments we received, but that full list of comments and responses to all of them will be provided in the FEIS to be published later this fall. Now, since publication of the DEIS, we've been reviewing those comments, refining the project, and also working on a financial plan for the delivery of the project. So as Mindy mentioned, the single preferred alternative, it's called Central Alternative 1B Modified. And just like the two preferred alternatives that were in the DEIS, it would create 11.2 miles of new interstate, completing the connection between I-69 in Kentucky and I-69 in Indiana. We do that by upgrading about 2.8 miles of existing US 41 to interstate standards, and then constructing about 8.4 miles of new terrain highway. Like Central Alternative 1B, only the new I-69 crossing would be tolled. Now, it's called modified because of some of the refinements we've been making. And as Mindy mentioned, most of those occur at those interchanges. And those refinements came about, in some cases to address comments that we received, but also to, just improve operations and ultimately, hopefully in some cases reduce the project's cost and making the project more financially feasible. And I'll talk through the specifics of some of those changes in a little bit. But after considering all the factors, the states identified Central Alternative 1B Modified as the single preferred alternative because, first and foremost, it meets the region's long-term cross-river mobility needs in a fiscally responsible manner. It reduces economic impact on the businesses in the US 41 corridor, and also provides local drivers with a free crossing option via that US 41 bridge. Now, it is still one project, just to be clear, 100%, and both states are committed to completing the entire project, but the plan is to deliver it in 2 construction phases. Now, that first phase focuses on the southern section of the project, extending from Kentucky 425 or the Henderson bypass up to US 60. Now, because this project is located entirely in Kentucky, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet will be overseeing its construction. And we've updated the cost estimates as changes have been made and as time has passed. So this section of the project is estimated to cost a total of $237 million. Now, section 2 of the project essentially completes the balance of the project. So from US 60 in Kentucky up to I-60, across the Ohio River and up to I-69 in Indiana. Again, it includes that 4-lane bridge over the river, completes the I-69 connection. Now, because this project obviously involves work in both states, both the Indiana Department of Transportation and the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet would partner together to deliver this project. And again, the cost of this piece of the project is estimated at $975 million. Now, in terms of delivering these 2 construction phases, well, in early 2020, the Kentucky legislature approved a highway plan that provided funding for the construction of Section 1. So design, right-of-way, and utilities for that section has already started, and in fact, a design-build procurement is planned for later this fall. Then, as construction of Section 1 would wrap up in the 2025 timeframe, final design for Section 2 would start up. Now, it's important to understand that the schedule for this section is really being driven by the availability of funding. Now, both states are actively pursuing every opportunity available, whether that's federal grants, bonds, or other innovative financing options to accelerate this section and complete the entire project sooner. But under the current programming, this is when the project would get built. Now, I do want to spend a little time talking about the refinements to the interchanges, since those are probably the most substantive changes that folks will see in the project. So we'll start at the southern end and work our way north. Now, the preferred alternatives in the DEIS included very minor changes at the Kentucky 351 interchange. But based on some additional engineering analyses and also coordination with the city of Henderson, we're now proposing some more substantial changes at this interchange. So that now the Kentucky 351 interchange would be reconstructed, removing the loop that is currently used for the northbound US 41 traffic exiting the Kentucky 351, and would create a more traditional diamond-shaped interchange. Now, except that each of the ramp intersections would be replaced with roundabout intersections that would allow more free-flowing movements for vehicles in the area. In addition, the existing intersection of Kentucky 351 and Kentucky 2084 would also be replaced with a roundabout. So this new interchange and this kind of reconstruction of this area will improve safety in the area for both vehicles and pedestrians, as well as and in addition to closely coordinating with the city of Henderson, as many will know, this area is home to North Middle School, right there at the interchange on the west side, and then also the Henderson County High School to the east a little way. So throughout the development of this interchange, we also coordinated with the Henderson County schools to ensure that the designs met their needs for the safe and efficient movement of cars and school buses, and then also their students moving to and from these schools. So also want to mention that our engineering analysis identified a potential safety concern due to the proximity of the ramps that currently connect to 2084 just to the south of this interchange. And essentially the distance between the Kentucky 351 ramps and the Kentucky 2084 ramps wasn't long enough to meet interstate standards. So those Kentucky 2084 ramps are actually going to be removed. And so vehicles that currently use those ramps would essentially be rerouted to either the Kentucky 351 interchange or the Kentucky 425 interchange. Now, the reconstruction of this area has also provided an opportunity for the project to support the city's goals of creating a gateway into downtown Henderson in this area. So the project team has been working with the city on their vision of this corridor, and a number of streetscaping elements are being developed to improve the aesthetics of this area. Now, because roundabouts aren't that common in this area of the state, the team created a short drive-through video that I want to show you now to demonstrate how the interchange would function and how these roundabouts would function together to create a safe and efficient traffic environment. So starting at the west end of the area, near the Kentucky 2084 intersection, and you'll see North Middle School there on the kind of the left side of the screen, and Palmer's towards the right. That intersection again would be converted to a dual lane roundabout. And in a dual lane roundabout, the approaches to each of these roundabouts would be carefully designed to ensure that approach speeds are safe and appropriate, and that all entering vehicles have good visibility. Also, the striping is designed carefully to clearly guide drivers to get into the correct lane prior to entering the roundabout, so there's no need to change lanes inside the roundabout. Also, I do want to mention that the design here is intended to be representative, but it's still conceptual. So the exact location of crosswalks or commercial entrances or the landscaping design, those details are still being worked out. But you will see that there are some of those streetscaping elements and opportunities for it in the medians, in the roundabouts themselves, for signage or other landscaping elements that will help improve the appearance of this area and create a clean, cohesive look for the area. Now, I also want to mention, you'll see, if you watch the video here, you'll see some large vehicles making their way through the interchange. These roundabouts are designed to handle large vehicles, including semi-trucks, school buses, fire trucks. And each of these roundabouts actually has what's called a truck apron. You can kind of see it there in the light gray around the outer ring of the roundabout in the middle there. And essentially, this is an area that should one of those larger trucks have an issue staying in their lane, this is essentially a safety zone that they can essentially drive up on if they have to avoid tracking out of their lane. Now, as we come back to the west side of the interchange, you'll see the southbound entrance ramp will actually have a dedicated right turn lane that will bypass the roundabout. So those vehicles wouldn't have to enter the roundabout traffic. And this came out of some of our conversations with North Middle School in facilitating both, parents as well as school buses coming from, southbound on future I-69 and getting into the North Middle School. So overall, you can see this whole interchange area will essentially be re-envisioned. And the project team really believes that this new design will improve not only the safety and mobility, but also help the city of Henderson realize their vision for this corridor. So moving a little further north, what we call the US 41 interchange. And this is where the I-69 alignment leaves the existing highway to head cross country towards the river. So I mentioned earlier about the two construction phases, and this is where that at this interchange that phasing comes into play. So following the construction of section 1, you know, the bridge won't be, you know, this is when the new alignment would stop at US 60. So the majority of traffic, including, you know, if you're headed to the US 41 commercial district, or if you're headed across the river into Indiana, would continue to you know, utilize US 41 headed north from here. So it was important that the movement of vehicles from, say, northbound I-69 to US 41 northbound and vice versa, coming the other direction, be free flow. So as a result, both of those ramps carrying that traffic are designed as 2-lane free flow ramps. So that means no stop signs, no traffic signals, or any other barriers. So another important change at this interchange involves realigning Kimsey Lane, which essentially is displaced by the construction of the interchange. So Kimsey Lane will actually be rerouted using the existing US 41 roadbed down to Van Wyck Road. Now, for those who know Van Wyck Road in this area, it's currently a gravel road. So Van Wyck Road would be reconstructed between those two segments of Kimsey Lane. So in order to facilitate, you know, continued movement and that connectivity of Kimsey Lane. Additionally, the Merrillway Trail, which currently dead ends at Kimsey Lane, will be reconstructed, you know, back to the realigned Kimsey Lane, but it'll also be extended parallel to Kimsey Lane down to Van Wyck Road, providing a nice, safe, you know, route for bikes and pedestrians down to there. Then when section 2 is completed, again, that's the section that will include that Ohio River Bridge and the connection to I-69 in Indiana. Obviously, the distribution of traffic is going to change with more vehicles wanting to continue north on I-69. So once that construction is complete, this interchange would actually be, you know, slightly reconfigured to provide a local connection to Kimsey Lane to the east, you know, providing direct interstate access to an area that currently doesn't have it, and which also will help support some of the local development goals. So moving a little further north at the US 60 interchange, the changes from what was presented in the draft EIS are very modest. Essentially, the ramps on the east side of the interchange were pulled a little bit closer to the interstate, and that allowed a more direct connection for Tillman Bethel Road down to US 60. Previously, there was a kind of a circuitous route required for vehicles coming from Tillman Bethel Road and wanting to head west on US 60 and onto I-69. Also, I wanted to mention that in this area, currently the US 60 to the west of Wathen Lane, folks will know that it's currently a 5-lane section, 5-lane roadway, 2 lanes in each direction with a center turn lane. That same roadway design will essentially be extended all the way through this interchange and to the east of the bridge over the CSX railroad. And then at that point, then it will start to taper down back down to 2 lanes where it'll tie back in near Morris Drive. And as US 60 heads east from there, again, it would continue to be a 2-lane road. One other change that doesn't involve an interchange is the addition of a large stormwater basin near the US 41 interchange. Now the basin will be, as I said, quite large. It'll be about 175 acres in size, and it's really designed to serve 3 functions. First of all, it will address this project's stormwater detention needs. Anytime you build a project like this, you increase the amount of impermeable surface in the area, and so you have to make sure that you properly manage that stormwater. But it will also provide a cost-effective source for fill material needed to construct the project. So the states, in paying for this project, won't have to pay to have material trucked in from long distances at a higher cost. And finally, it's actually going to help address some of the existing flooding issues that occur along Canoe Creek downstream of the project in downtown Henderson. So that's really a community benefit coming out of this project. Then finally, at the northern end of the project, where the new highway connects to existing I-69, the project team is still evaluating a handful of options that would up here that would provide a more direct connection for traffic coming from downtown Evansville and continuing north on I-69. Some folks, if you recall, the design that was presented in the draft EIS involved a kind of circuitous loop for that traffic. So one of the things we wanted to try to do in spending some more time on the design of this interchange is to provide a more direct connection. So one of those concepts shown here would actually include a signalized intersection for two of the ramps. So, but now in addition to providing that more direct connection, this interchange would also reduce overall travel time compared to the previous design. It would also substantially reduce the cost associated with this interchange, because previously because this area sits largely in the Ohio River floodway, there were lots of bridges involved in this interchange, and so we've been able to reduce those. And finally, we've also been able to reduce impacts to some sensitive environmental resources that are in the area. So that's your overview of the changes. Obviously, there will be more. We'll be posting this information on the project website, as I'm sure Mindy will remind you, so you can dig into the designs a little more, and we look forward to getting your feedback on them.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dan. I want to take a little pause here and let people know we have seen the questions that are coming in. If you do have questions or comments, and if you have not posted those yet, it's a good chance to start thinking about those. We'll start wrapping up this presentation in the next 5 minutes or so, and we want to make sure that you have time to enter those comments and questions, and sometimes thinking about that and typing that out can take a little bit of time. So if you have some of those questions that have been prompted by Dan's great coverage here tonight, then go ahead and start entering those, and we will have all of those for the record. Dan, of course, has covered, like I said, lots of good stuff. So it's always important when you talk about that good information, what's going to happen next? So where are we headed from here? As we talked about, the project team is working to wrap up this environmental study. This environmental study is required for large projects that will receive federal funding. We've talked about that before. It is a process, but it is a very important process to help make sure that all of the right decisions are being made. It truly does amount to a decision-making tool. And we are nearing the last milestones, which is pretty darn exciting, honestly. We'll have a final environmental impact statement published, identifying the preferred alternative for ORX, and we'll have a record of decision, what's called the ROD. That is important. That will come from the Federal Highway Administration, and the ROD is approval of the selected alternative. So how close are we? Well, the FEIS and ROD are expected this fall. So we are very close now. We just turned the calendar today. It's April. This is not an April Fool's joke. We mean it when we say that the FEIS and ROD are coming and they're expected this fall. Then the initial financial plan and the project management plan will be developed. And believe it or not, then we're ready to talk about construction. Dan talked about this. The project is going to be constructed in 2 sections, and construction of section 1 is expected to begin in 2022. That's next year, right around the corner. And as Dan also mentioned, the states will be looking for those opportunities to accelerate that timeline for section 2. So in the here and now, we are starting that 15-day comment period, or a little more than that, April 1st, and we're running through April 16th. And those comments that we're asking for are specifically your thoughts, your comments, your questions on that single preferred alternative, central alternative 1B modified. So that alternative and all of the modifications that Dan has talked about tonight, we want to hear from you and hear your feedback. You can share those questions and comments by phone, by email, or by mail. And as we talked about, you can do it right here tonight at this virtual public meeting. Comments and questions that are received during this meeting, as we talked about at the very beginning, are part of the official comment period. I want to repeat that because I know we had some people that joined us a little bit later. We covered some of this housekeeping at the top of the meeting. If you submit a comment or a question tonight, our intent is not to go through the full list of questions that need a little more thoughtful answer and a little more time there. We're going to capture those. We have your contact information if you've joined us online, and somebody with the project team will be getting back in touch with you. If you are just calling in tonight, if you have your phone and you've called into the meeting, you can use any of those other comment channels to share your feedback. Let's look at those channels now. You can simply call us. The number is on your screen. That's the number for our project office. You can also drop us an email, info@I-69OhioRiverCrossing.com. You can also get to that email through our project website, I-69 Ohio River Crossing. You can also drop us a note, mail us your comments. Just do so in time to make sure you get that postmark by April 16th. That's the end of the comment period. Also should probably mention here that although the project office is still closed to the public right now during the pandemic, we are still getting mail there. So you're going to have your comment received. It's going to go to the project team and come to their attention. So that address is right there on your screen. You can also find all of this information on our project website. And to that end, I want to say it is easy to follow our progress and stay in touch. We've talked about the website a lot tonight, but all of the information that we've talked about tonight, this presentation will be found on the website. This whole recording of the meeting tonight, where you can see that I didn't pick a great seat because I didn't anticipate the sun moving down lower. You'll be able to see that, as well as we have a recording of the meeting posted there on the website. We'll also be sharing information on our social media channels. So if you don't follow us right now, this is a great time to get involved with so much happening with the project. We are on Facebook and Twitter. And I should mention that if you are on the website, it's very easy to sign up to receive project updates. If you do not do so already, you can choose to get those updates delivered right to your inbox, or you can have those updates sent to you by text message. So you can choose whatever option works best for you. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for taking the time to join us tonight. We really appreciate it. I'm also going to look through some of these questions. As I said, most of these are going to be addressed outside of this meeting. If there's a short question that you have, a question of clarification that we can ask you about, that we can answer quickly, that's something we're going to tackle right now. Otherwise, because of the number of folks we have involved, we're going to reach out to you as a project team with a response to your question. So a very easy one here from Philip, who asked if you can get copies of the presentation tonight. The answer is absolutely yes, you can. That's going to be available on the website. If that doesn't work for you, and if you need a hard copy of that presentation, we also have a nice handout that summarizes the presentation. It's available on the website. But if the website is not a good channel for you, use that number and call the project office, and we are happy to mail materials to you. So if you make that request, we're happy to get that in the mail for you. Let's see here. A lot of these questions are going to take a little more time and attention from the project team. And so we will be getting back in touch with you with the response. Okay, this one is a quick question of clarification that we will answer and give you a quick answer here. Will the twin bridges be down to 1 when I-69 is completed or sooner? Gary, you want to chime in and give us the answer on that one? And I put him right on the spot. Yes. And he didn't have a camera or his mic. There you go.
Yeah, the US 41 bridge will not be taken out of service until I-69 is complete.
There you go. So an easy question to clarify there. And let's see if there's anything else that we can answer very quickly for you. And if not, we're going to have all of these as part of our official comment period. We will get answers to you. This is a great channel to share those questions. And let's see here. And you can continue to send your questions and comments in that direction, and they'll be part of the record. Let's see. All right, phase 1 is Kentucky. Phase 2 is the river in Indiana, yes. Please confirm the ROD date, the funding timeline, and the procurement date. And since that is phase 1 and section 1, section 2, and we're starting with section 1, I'm gonna throw that right back over to you again, Gary. I think you're probably the best person to speak to that timeline, especially on section 1, which is so close now.
Okay, well, section 1, the funding is established, as Dan showed previously. The $237 million will be over a period of time from now through 2025, as identified in the highway plan from Kentucky. Phase 2 construction would not begin until 2027. So you're looking at a procurement timeline for phase 2 to begin in that 2026 timeframe at that point in time. So toll revenue will be part of the innovative financing package. Right now, it's the expectation that Kentucky would sell what we call Garvey bonds. That's a federal bonding program to supplement the toll revenue, and likewise, Indiana would participate from their traditional program at that point in time. Procurement for Section 1 actually started today. If you want to start the clock ticking, normally a design build project takes about 6 to 9 months of this size to procure. We actually put out a notice to industry this morning. So the clock started on that Section 1 this morning.
Very good. And you just answered another question with that, Gary. They were asking about procurement method. It is design build for Section 1 there. So you have your answer on that one. There was also a question, just to follow up on the one that was asked previously about timing for the ROD. We're expecting that combined FEIS and ROD this fall. So that's the timeline for that. And with that, I think most of these other questions are going to be best served to get back in touch with people individually and share responses with them. I'm going to go ahead though, and I'll just soft pedal for a bit and chat a little bit and get everybody a little more time. We have some more time available for this window. I want to make sure if this is a window that you're counting on to use as your comment period, and this is the way that you prefer to submit your comment and your question, that you have a chance to do so. And sometimes it can take a little bit of time to get that entered. And so you are using that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and that will be visible to everybody. Visible to the project team, I should say. We'll also mention as we wait to see if there are any questions or comments to come in, that all of this information we've talked about is on the website, but there are also some nice maps up there. So certainly some maps that detail what Dan walked through tonight. There are some maps that will show you a nice Section 1 view and a Section 2 view. So procurement method for Section 2. Do we have an answer on that yet? Too soon?
That's to be determined.
Yes. Yeah. All right. And with that, we will take these questions to the project team. We will get responses to you. I just want to clarify one more time that the questions that you're asking are associated with the email address that you use to register for this meeting. So that is where the responses will be going, unless here's a pretty quick one that I think that we can knock out for Amy. Is I-69 going over 60, or is 60 going over I-69? Dan?
US 60 would go over I-69.
There you go. Another quick question here for clarification. Which of the twin bridges will be retained? And that's going to be the northbound bridge that will be retained. Okay, if you could, Nicole, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the slide that has the phone information and the address again for Julie, that's a great one that we can have up and keep that up. Thank you, Julie, for pointing that out so that you have a chance to jot down that information, and we will keep that up for the remainder of this presentation so you have a chance to get that. And again, the comment period runs through April 16th. Okay, I tell you what, we are going to leave this open for a few minutes more. We're going to go ahead and say thank you very much for joining us. And I'm going to say thank you for your time and your interest in the project, and do follow our progress here. It's going to be pretty exciting to see all of this unfold, and we will have news to share with you, and we'll make sure that you're aware of all of that. But other than that, we'll just keep the window open for a few minutes. So you have a chance, if you're in the process of submitting any comments or questions, you have a chance to finish that. If you have submitted a question that you did not hear answered tonight, we are not ignoring you. Your question will have a response, and it will come from the project team. So when it says that your question is no longer there or it's been dismissed by the host, I'm just filing it. Somebody just asked what that means. I'm filing that question just to clear my screen. We are not dismissing any of your questions. They're all captured for us. And that way we're able to respond to you and the project team can reach back out. So all of those are being captured. The terminology is bad. It doesn't feel good when it sounds like we're dismissing you, but we are not. All right. And with that, we will say thank you very much for joining us this evening. Keep the comments and questions coming if you would like to do so. We'll keep the window open until the rest of this meeting. So we'll have that window open for a few more minutes and you can use that as a comment channel. If a comment or question comes to mind that didn't immediately this evening, use those channels that are up on your screen. Just give us a call at the project office, drop us an email, or drop us a note in the mail. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time this evening and thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.